My name is Delroy Hibbert. I'm a Bristolian born and raised in the city. I'm also a DJ, massive music fan and cultural historian. And my track is Fresh 4, Wishing on a Star. It's a Bristol track, and it was a really interesting track because this was the whole period before the rave scene kicked in. And there was a sort of underground party scene because at the time, Bristol's clubs used to finish at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, it doesn't mean that Bristol stopped partying at 2 o'clock in the morning. It meant that you kind of went and tried to find something to do. You'd kind of wander around Clifton or Montpellier or Redland, try and gate crash a student party, or, you know, you'd go into a club and you'd hear a whisper that there was going to be, there's this party on Redland Road, or there's going to be a party in St. Paul's, something like that. And just through word of mouth, how we did it without the internet, I don't know, but everybody would just turn up at 2 o'clock in the morning at this party. And there was this group of kids mainly from South Bristol, Knoll West, that would put on parties at this squat, St. Luke's Road it was, in Bedminster. I never quite worked out what the building was, but I kind of got the feeling it was a disused cinema, purely because I wandered around in the middle of the party once and up some stairs and then found myself looking out this little square hole at all the dancers and all the DJs, and I and a friend sort of stayed there for a little bit and then sort of wandered back down again. So I'm guessing it was a very small cinema, but it might not have been. We were just there because it was a party. So these guys were always putting on parties. It would be a mixture, kind of hip hop, funk, as that was the kind of underground scene at the time. You might get a few sort of early house tunes, that sort of thing. And then one day we heard that these guys were coming out with a record, and they were going to be filming the record at one of their parties, and the record was Wishing on a Star. I remember sort of going down, I think we missed a video because we were probably still mooching across Bristol from the Moon Club, which was in St. Paul's, to Bedminster, but we got there and it was a great party and everything. And then fast forward probably 6 months later, and I've gone to visit family that were in New York. And at the time, that was like a pilgrimage for me, being a young hip-hop head. I was going to the source, the home of hip-hop. Every time I went there, I was completely sort of blown away just by the streets. It was like walking in a film set, you know. And one of the things that I really used to look forward to was listening to the radio. Now, it might sound funny enough, but this was at a time, kind of 89, 90, when you were lucky to hear hip-hop on the radio. It was just starting to get into the charts, so you'd have Public Enemy, Run DMC, Beastie Boys around that sort of time. You know, a few years beforehand, you might have been lucky if you'd heard John Peel play a hip-hop track. So going to New York and listening to the radio, it was just like, oh my God, they're playing 2 hours of hip-hop. Nobody played 2 hours of hip-hop. And people used to record the shows, and they would come back with loads of tapes, and if you were lucky you might get a second or third hand copy of a tape and they'd have loads of hisses. But this was like New York rap music. It was absolutely fantastic. So I am lying in bed one day, I'm listening to, I think it was DJ Red Alert on Kiss FM in New York, and he's playing the usual selection of tracks. He's playing freestyles, the best that New York's got to offer at the time, you know. And in those days, it was very kind of regimented. They only played East Coast, and it was, when I say East Coast, it was pretty much just New York stuff. They didn't really play anything from Atlanta or the Miami scene. They certainly weren't playing any West Coast stuff, so it was pretty much New York. And for me, being a young b-boy at the time, it was the creme de la creme of hip-hop. So I'm listening, I've got the headphones on, I'm taping at the same time, and then all of a sudden, I just hear familiar bars come through. And it's like, do, 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 do. And I'm like, oh my God, they're playing Fresh 4. They're playing Wishing on a Star. And this is like, it's like the best hip-hop DJ in the best hip-hop city on the best hip-hop radio station is playing a record that was made in a studio probably less than 5 miles away from my house. I knew these guys. I had never heard anything from Bristol. They weren't superstars. They were guys that played in a squat in an unfashionable part of town. They came from Knoll West, and I sometimes look back and I think that I might have elevated maybe 3 feet in the air in just like complete shock. It was just like, yes, this is Bristol. This is my highlight. They're playing Bristol. I want to ring up the station. I want to say, Red Alert, do you know this is from Bristol? I know these guys. I know these people. I go to their parties. You know, this isn't New York. It isn't New Jersey. This is Bristol. And for me, it really made that connection. And, you know, there's always been a transatlantic connection between Bristol and the East Coast, and certainly New York. You know, there were ships that passed in between, there were people that passed in between. The Atlantic slave trade had gone 200 years before that. So we were now connected, not just through history and through commerce or anything like that. We were connected musically, and made me realise now it wasn't just a one-way street. It wasn't just us buying New York. It was New York was starting to listen to Bristol as well. So for me, it was just like the greatest honour.